Now, one person we did hear from today for the first time, Karen Reed herself, doubling down, of course, saying she did not do this. She wants to know who did.
Said it feels we're the only ones fighting for the truth of what happened to John O'Keefe. And me and my family and my attorneys and my team have marshaled every resource to get to the truth. It just feels like no one else wants it.
Karen, just to be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
Yes, we do.
And no, she didn't do it. No, she didn't do it. This is an innocent woman. She didn't do it.
I tried to save his life.
Yeah.
I tried to save his life at 6 in the morning. I was covered in the only one trying to save his life.
Why'd you admit to it?
She didn't admit to it. She didn't admit to anything close to that. Nothing close to that. And you should know that.
That was like 3 or 4 times she admitted to it.
No, she didn't.
That's not true.
She asked a question. She asked a question, which is very different. She didn't admit to anything.
You are listening to the Roberta Glass True Crime Report, putting the true back in true crime. From New York City, Roberta Glass is now on the record.
Okay. How's everybody doing? Here we go. Wanted to talk to you today about Karen Reed, Aidan Kearney, and the 34 Fairview podcast. Now, that's basically, I came home from Thanksgiving and everybody was talking about episode 8 and what an epic takedown M. William Phelps, who is the creator of the 34 Fairview Road podcast. It's about Karen Reed and her alleged murder of John O'Keefe and the trial and the case. And everybody said you had to listen to it. It's so epic. It's such an epic takedown of Turtleboy. And I listened to it, and it was nothing that was news to me. I mean, if you've been following this case, then you had to be following Turtleboy. I know that I got a comment like, how could you talk about Turtleboy, Aidan Turtleboy Kearney, if you don't know who he is? He's the blogger on this case. He has 18 witness harassment counts against him in this case as well. So he has his own trial going on. He also has a woman who's alleging SA, or SA is being alleged against him. In addition, he is the blogger that Karen Reed went to, and her lawyers, David Yannetti and Alan Jackson, and purposefully, and this is from the documents, court documents in Aidan Kearney's witness harassment case, purposefully leaked evidence and their own defense theories. So like from the mind of Karen Reed, it's so crazy, it's hard to even explain. So they leaked real documents, but they also leaked theories and ideas so that they could put it in their own legal briefs as it has been reported, blah, 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 blah. So that they could use these things as if they, in their own legal briefs, as if they had some validity. Well, it's been reported that this and this happened. It's not from Karen Reed's own mind, which it was. So this whole other conspiracy theory really got sold through Aidan Turtleboy Kearney and Karen Reed's own lawyers. So every time they went to a hearing, they used those hearings to push their false narrative, to the public as if they had evidence of any of this. And when it came time for the trial, they had so little evidence that they couldn't argue these theories because there was no evidence of it. They couldn't argue third party. They tried to in a really clever way. They tried to kind of continue on through cross-examination, but it was an epic fail in my view. You know, I just know as a juror, having been a juror on a criminal case recently this year, you're looking for anything to acquit. And if this was such an overwhelming case of innocence or even doubt, she would have been acquitted on something. I know they're trying to say that the jury agreed to acquit her on the biggest charges. I'm just not buying that. So everybody was saying this is such an epic takedown. But, you know, these were all the things that you've heard before. His insulting the family, really going after John O'Keefe's father, calling him a drunk, insulting his mother. Just cruel stuff, unnecessary stuff, whipping up his audience. I mean, great. I mean, if it gets out to a wider audience, great. But the issue is that 34 Fairview Road, that podcast, 40% of the earnings goes into Turtleboy's pocket. So as this podcast, we're in this kind of postmodern, I don't know what you'd call it, postmodern thing, postmodern pinch, where the podcast that it's criticizing, Aidan Turtleboy Kearney, is actually funding him at the same time. I mean, if this podcast were giving 40% of its earnings to the wrongful conviction movement, everybody would be like, what? What's going on? Is this some kind of a conspiracy? Is this controlled opposition? What the heck is going on? So, excuse me for not jumping on the bandwagon. I see a lot of people on this side of the fence calling M. William Phelps a genius. You know, I mean, maybe not, maybe I'm exaggerating, but a hero, a bold, brave journalist. When he started out this podcast saying Karen Read was like confused. She was desperately calling around to find out where John O'Keefe was as if she didn't know. I think that's something for another podcast to really put that myth to bed. So excuse me for not being overly excited or thinking that Turtleboy's career is over after episode 8 of 34 Fairview Road. And I think what I really wanted to talk about is the uncomfortable position you get in when you really critically look at true crime reporting, which is it gets to be very lonely. And when you drop your skepticism, I think we're all looking for heroes. We're all looking for people who agree with us. Humans as just an animal, being a human animal, you want to find people that agree with you. We're herd creatures. We like company. We don't like to be the lone person out. And so much of the Karen Read propaganda capitalizes on that. Uses sock puppets, makes you feel like, well, I'm the only one who believes Karen Read's guilty. What's wrong with you? Most people believe, and I've actually heard that argument recently. Most people believe. Well, sometimes most people are wrong. Sometimes you can be the only one right in a whole sea of wrong people. And it's very hard to hang on to your hat and keep your eyes open. But there are a lot of unreliable narrators in this story on both sides of the fence. And it's certainly been a hard case to report because it's been so difficult and I've been disappointed on both sides of the fence with the reporting. And I don't know if there are, it's hard to know what the real relationships are between any of these people, but Innocence Fraud Watch did a post on her blog that I just thought we'd look at briefly. This is going to be a short one today. Like I said, I'm just back from Thanksgiving. I hope you all had a good Thanksgiving. Let me share my screen and show you. So she had a blog called M. William Phelps, Matthew Valentinus versus Aidan Turtleboy Kearney. Some insights from X. And so it starts, she was smart enough to really document what was going on Twitter, just from Twitter. So if you don't know, let me go over this one more time in case anybody's just tuning in or is lost. Okay. So Matthew Valentinus is a lawyer. He manages or used to manage Aidan Turtleboy Kearney up to 2 minutes ago. He managed M. William Phelps. M. William Phelps is a true crime podcaster. He also writes books. Okay? So everybody, Aidan Turtleboy Kearney is a blogger who has really been used by Karen Reid's defense team. But they have the same manager. So here's both of their manager lawyers, Matthew Valentinus. And Matthew Valentinus is the one who worked out this deal that Aidan Turtleboy Kearney would promote 34 Fairview Road and get his large audience to download it. And he would get 40% of the profits. Now, it's anyone's guess if Matthew Valentinus is going to argue that he doesn't deserve that 40% now. I would think it would be a hard contract to get out of, but that may happen in the future. But it doesn't negate this being the setup, okay? So this case will be a national mess soon enough. So that's on the Boston Herald article about Karen Reid and John O'Keefe. In January 2024, Matthew Valentinus writes, "Hi, Aidan. Sorry I have not written sooner. I hope this email finds you as well as can be. I wanted to check in and see how you are doing. I've got a lot of clients on my true crime roster side in the federal prison system, but I didn't suspect to ever see you in jail. But I guess I should not really be that surprised to see them put you in here, given what you have exposed. It's the last card they had to play, and now you have exposed them even further. You're a brave dude and definitely pushed boundaries farther than most would dare to do, but you'll come out of this stronger and wiser for it. Has the documentary team stood by you through this, or did your arrest trigger any morals clauses to give them an excuse to bail on you? I hope they didn't." Hold on one second, guys. Okay, where were we? You're a brave dude, and you definitely push boundaries farther than most would dare to do, but you come out of this stronger and wiser for it. Okay, did the documentary team drop you? I hope they didn't. But if they did, let me know. And I am confident and I can help you find another home for your documentary. Anyway, man, I missed your shows and looking forward to you getting out soon. Stay strong and hopefully you get this email. As I saw you write, you have a tablet inside. I look forward to speaking with you again soon, and we all await your release sooner than later. Kind regards, Matthew Valentinus. So he's like looking forward to his shows. I hope you get out soon so you can harass more witnesses and insult John O'Keefe's family some more. June 2024, Matthew Valentinus is writing, Part 2, Dr. Turtleboy talking with M. William Phelps, Crossing the Line podcast, covering the Karen Reed murder case of Boston police officer John O'Keefe. Turtleboy hashtags, tons of hashtags. So I played that interview. I can play it again if you guys are interested. But basically, there started the PR offense. M. William Phelps appearing on Turtleboy's show. Turtleboy looked incredibly uncomfortable. Aidan Kearney said, did a podcast last week with American crime writer, investigative journalist Matt Phelps. Here's the trailer and a link to his iTunes. M. William Phelps writes, thanks, brother. Keep fighting the good fight. So he's cheering him on in June. Speaking and keep speaking your truth. I respect that so much. So this is not new. Like, these are not new tactics. It wasn't hidden what Turtleboy was doing. He was doing it out in the open. It wasn't hidden what he was getting into. It was very out in the open. This is after his arrest, etc. And M. William Phelps is saying he just admires him so much for getting and speaking his truth and getting arrested for harassing witnesses. Bob Rowe said, had lots of respect for this guy. He seemed very victim-centric. Now he puts Turtleboy on his podcast and gives him more exposure, considering what Turtleboy has done to... Oh, so this is actually Turtleboy on M. Williams Phelps podcast. A little bit different. My apologies. He seems very victim-focused. Now he puts Turtleboy on his podcast and gives him more exposure. Considering what Turtleboy has done to women alone should have been enough to not give Turtleboy more exposure, let alone how he has treated the victim's family and witnesses in this case. So how is Bob Rowe hip to this and not M. William Phelps? The answer is Matt Phelps is hip to it. He just wants to get paid. He just knows that Turtleboy is where the money's at in this story, and he's happy to jump along no matter what Turtleboy's doing. That's my opinion. Wow, I am shocked, but yet another true crime hack that is ignoring victims and giving sleaze more exposure. This one is very disappointing. Tuesday Gazette says, oh my God, I have lost so much faith in people. Carrie Lama says, who was featured on the podcast, oh wow, I did too. I'm shocked. Damn. M. William Phelps says, if you're going to trash me, Bob Rowe, who started this, so he's defending himself here. Get it right. Not what I said. I said nothing about credentials. I said Turtleboy's reporting despite who he is on a personal level, speaks for itself, which is really funny that he writes this here. Because in episode 8, he says, I'm not even going to call what Turtleboy does reporting anymore. Like after he played these clips, like it was all news to him. Like, wow, this is awful. I can't even call this reporting. But here he's arguing it is reporting and that we all should respect it. So he speaks out of both sides of his mouth. No, when it's convenient for him, now that his relationship with Matthew Valentinus has disintegrated totally, meaning Turtleboy's relationship with his agent and Matt Phelps' agent has disintegrated totally. Now the podcast is taking a little different turn, and now he's totally going after Turtleboy after feeling his full wrath because Turtleboy has trashed him. No honest person can deny that. Dr. Turtleboy is an important part of the Reed case, especially when I'm giving him 40% of my earnings. So very disappointing. See, we didn't know this until Turtleboy broke it. So when Matt Phelps said, hey, I'm making a Karen Reed is guilty podcast, or it started talking about Karen Reed's guilt, Turtleboy was like, I don't want to be a part of this. This doesn't make my brand look very good to be promoting this podcast that really brings out some mild elements of Karen Reed's guilt and does it in the mildest way possible. So very disappointing. M. William Phelps, I've listened to all of your investigative podcasts you've created. Wow. M. William Phelps writes, I have yet to see a more polarizing case. This S is getting crazy, and this trial isn't over yet. Part 2 of my interview with Turtleboy coming this week on his podcast. The whole world is not seeing who the real Mick Alberts, Daniels, and apparently Nagel are. This is not how innocent people behave. So they basically post some, this is the nonsense I believe, when Jill Daniels saw Aidan Kearney at the Albert's Pizza place and got really upset and smacked the camera out of his hand. So many have been making my case about the polarization, says Matt Phelps. I interviewed murderers and serial killers, but I'm crossing a line interviewing Turtleboy. I don't take personal sides. I cover the story and give my analysis. Little typo there. But he does give his analysis. Every way you narrate a story is your analysis. I find it really funny when someone says you're biased. Well, we all have a point of view. We all have an opinion, and it comes out in the way that you cover the story. And certainly Matt Phelps saying in the beginning, Karen Reed isn't a sociopath. Based on what? I don't know. I can list the reasons I think Karen Reed is a psychopath. No feelings of empathy. She seems to get bored really easily. Her lack of fidelity, the way she coercively controls, her relationships seem to be about power and control. I mean, I can go on. I can go on if I want, but he just says, like, he just negates it right out of the ballpark without giving any reason why. And says that she was desperately looking for John O'Keefe that night, among other things. That really bothers me because she knew right where he was. How is that possible? How is it possible that she knew right where to go? She's like, Carrie, we got to get to Fairview Road. And as they're pulling up, no one sees anything, meaning Jen McCabe or Carrie Roberts can't see anything in the blizzard. And Karen starts kicking the car door saying, get me out, get me out. He's there, he's there. How can she see him under 3 feet of snow? John O'Keefe. But apparently Karen Reed is the psychic. Spotted him right away. Or did she know where he was? and use that night to call her parents and plot her next step forward. That's what I think she did. But she's like, I love that he's like painting her like she's looking around, calling around for him. Aidan, I need pictures of you. Karen, photo no one has seen yet would be ideal. He asks also. Aidan also shared story coming soon. This is in September. For the last several months, I've been interviewed for a podcast with award-winning true crime author and #1 Apple podcaster, Matt Phelps. It's going to be the most comprehensive 10-part podcast on the Karen Read case, loaded with exclusive information. It is set to be released October 17th, so subscribe now. Here is a trailer preview. This podcast is not a presidential campaign, so Matt, it's par for the course. This is a podcast, not a presidential campaign. Who are these people that are concerned, and what the hell are they concerned about? When you do true crime stuff, you interview all sides. Cops, killers, victims, all sides, especially for podcasts, man. That's how it goes. You know how many mobsters I represent, and even though they know people, they hate them. They hate them. They hate that they will be interviewed. You think Netflix or HBO is going to be any different? Yeah, it can be very different. Netflix just recently released a series where they interviewed no killers, and it was great. They interviewed detectives and the victim's family. It was awesome. It was all on New York. I think it's called like New York Crime Stories, something. I wish I knew the title exactly, but it was awesome. I love that series on Netflix. It was I was so pleasantly surprised by it. It's like, here are the detectives who worked the case. Here are some of the victims and the victims' family members, and the story. No convicts, killers necessary. The difference here is we are working with you, and you are sharing profits with you. Our goal is money, not an Oscar or Pulitzer. Here's their goal: money. So don't tell me about how he's a victim's advocate or he's doing this for the right reasons. There's Matthew Valentina saying exactly what their goal is: money. And that's why I think he picked the Karen Read is guilty side. It's where the evidence will take you, and not off into conspiracy territory, but not that I don't think he would be willing to go there if that's where the money was. But he has Aidan to bring in the free Karen readers, and then he goes on the Karen Read is guilty side, made alliances with some of them, then he gets the entire audience. Again, I'm going to read it one more time. Our goal is money, not an Oscar or Pulitzer. So a Pulitzer is a book prize, if you guys don't know. For those that don't know, this is heavier on entertainment than journalism. Thank you for saying that, Matthew Valentinas. Exactly my point. And furthermore, Phelps will never say anything about you that is not true. Do you worry he's going to call you a essayist? My words, not his. Seriously, man, relax. The Twitter world means nothing for the facts, but it does help build downloads. Downloads equal money, right? I mean, I just hear money makes the world go round in my head, that song. Aidan Kearney says, stop what you're doing and listen to the trailer. So he got him to continue to promote it. November, where we are. Oh, now we're in December, but where we were yesterday, 2024. Matt says, so is the podcast still on? As long as you keep your comments and criticism of him on content, he found calling him a coward and a fraud a personal attack. And if you personally attack him again, there will be consequences. Just be smart and reasonable. We'll be fine. Consequences? Is that a threat from him? Like, I can't give my opinion of him without consequences? So this is Matt to Aidan again. Matt Valentinus, the manager. Aidan Kearney says, I agreed to do a podcast with Karen Reed case with William Phelps after my manager set me up with him. I met with him many times, and he led me to believe he was a serious journalist who was following the facts of the case and was going to put out a comprehensive podcast. Thus far, all I've heard is misinformation and wild speculation on his part. He doesn't want me bad-mouthing his work publicly, won't return my texts, and told my manager there will be consequences if I said negative things about his coverage of the Karen Reed case. He said the criticism of his podcast thus far and the fact that I called him cowardly because he doesn't allow comments or replies to his tweets is a personal attack. Our contract says that I will make 40% of all advertising revenue, which is dependent on downloads, and that I will promote the podcast. And although I will continue to share the podcast and encourage you to download it, I want my money after all. That's me saying that. I won't stay silent and sell out. I'm not the kind of guy you can scare with threats of consequences. And if he thinks he can censor and silence me for a payday, he's got the wrong guy. Tonight on the live show, I'll be exposing all the blatant misinformation that has thus far been shared on the first 3 episodes. I have a feeling he's going to try to void the contract and keep my 40%. So I'm also in the market for an attorney to look over the contract and make sure I don't get effed over there. A lot of people have asked why I would take part. This is Aidan again in a pro McAlbert in a Karen Reed podcast. It's a long story I briefly get into on the live show. Anyway, there's more receipts here in the link to in the description of this episode. It goes on and on and on. I think you guys get the idea. But I just think it's important to go back. I would never tell any of you what to listen to or what to watch. If you're enjoying it, you enjoy it. But it is more entertainment than journalism. I think you should know that. I think you should know that the money from the advertising dollar that you're generating is going to, 40% of it is going to Aidan Kearney. And I'm troubled that so many of you are sharing the story that he adopted his sister-in-law's children after her murder, just like John O'Keefe's adopted his nieces and nephews. He was the guardian of his niece and nephews, after the death from cancer of his sister, Kristen. And if you look at any of the reporting on William Phelps, Diana Farriaz, that's the name of his sister-in-law, it's still unsolved. She had a terrible relationship at the time, it's been reported, with her husband and with Phelps. And she gave away her children years before that ever happened. So I find it interesting that he's giving it a false narrative. He says to an uncle and an aunt. So one child went to an aunt, and I believe the other children went to an uncle. Find that odd. Does anybody have any questions? I'm going to take a quick break. When I get back, I'm just going to finish up on this and see you in about a minute. Don't go anywhere.
We love taking a break. Grab a snack or maybe a glass of wine. Roberta will be back in no time. This podcast is listener supported, so smash that like button and subscribe or become a patron for exclusive content if you are so inclined. Have something to say? Shoot Roberta a super chat. She will do her best to read it on air without delay. Now Roberta's back and ready to put the true back in true crime. Here's Roberta.
So there's a lot to get into. Probably tomorrow I'll come back. They talk about some of the, there's been a decision on the, what is it, Rule 17 motions. So we went over that hearing last time, last two episodes. There looks like Hank Brennan is not getting Karen Reed's mother's or father's phone calls. Go through that tomorrow. I have to read that more thoroughly. Exactly. I have to really read the defenses more thoroughly to see what she agreed with. I just read her short response, meaning the Judge Cannoni's short response. That's a disappointment. And I was surprised by that. I thought Hank Brennan made an excellent argument. And I'm wondering if he can come out. It's a ruling on one motion, Maui. Is it just the mothers and not the fathers? I thought it was both of theirs. Or I guess those are together. Yeah, over the phone. So I have to go read it more carefully myself, meaning the defense's motion on that. I just kind of skimmed it, frankly, before as I was on my way to Thanksgiving, and definitely not closely enough to talk about it in any great depth. But that was disappointing because but what it looks like they're going to get the Reeds to testify. I mean, doesn't it look like everything's going for the Karen Reed's parents to testify? I don't know if anybody feels the same way, but I do. I feel like I'd be really surprised if one, if not both of them, aren't put on the stand, kicking and screaming. I think they will fight it all the way, say they're going to take the fifth. I don't know. It's going to be wild. It's going to be wild. But it looks like Hank Brennan wants to get them on the stand, which is what we all said the first time round. And why isn't the sister-in-law being... She's kind of, in my view, the most interesting. She seems like she knows. She's not quite in... When we talk about cult-like thinking of families, she's not quite totally indoctrinated into the cult-like thinking of the Reeds. I think she would be a really interesting witness. I wonder, I doubt if she would lie for Karen Reed on the stand. Why isn't she testifying? She saw Karen Reed's taillight that day, or the day, that day when they took the car away. Why isn't she being why isn't she being asked to testify? So that's what I really have for today. I'll see you guys tomorrow. We're going to talk about that. Maybe talk a little bit more about how John O'Keefe was found and how Karen Reed found him. That seems to be, I think, more and more people, I'm getting more and more questions about CPR. Did Karen do CPR? How she found him and how and what and who did what and how those phone calls went. It's a really intricate timeline, and I think we might go over that tomorrow. So have a great night, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow at 6 p.m. Thanks so much for listening.
I hit my boyfriend with my car. It wasn't an accident, but with lying lawyers I'll go far. Lying lawyers and witness harassment, I'll avoid prison. It was snowing. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system a clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. Making money, truth is my second victim. Carry, Jen, like John, you were my mom. My innocence fraud campaign is my biggest hit yet. I hit my boyfriend with my car. It wasn't an accident, but with lying lawyers I'll go far. Lying lawyers and witness harassment, I'll avoid prison. It was snowing. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system a clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. Making money, truth is my second victim. Carry, Jen, like John, you were my mark. My innocence fraud campaign is my biggest hit yet. John, you were my mom. My innocence fraud campaign is my biggest hit yet.